Hello, all, and welcome back to a new episode and a new season of TV and Us, a conversation show about the TV series we just can't stop talking about. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And each season we focus on a different show, reviewing it episode by episode, and we invite you to watch along with us. Right now we are starting and we are diving into reviewing the newest Netflix show, Supacell. And today we are on episode 1 titled Michael. If you haven't watched it yet, this is your spoiler alert. Please check out the episode before continuing to listen to the rest of our review. Okay, Sarah, kick us off with an episode summary for this very first episode of Supacell.
Delivery driver Michael has big plans for the future with his girlfriend until something odd starts happening to him and others across South London.
All right. So here on TV and Us, we have a little tradition that we like to start and kick off our conversations with, where we share our episode titles of choice for each episode. So we pick what we would name this episode. So Sarah, what is your episode title for this first episode of Supacell?
My title is Get Ready.
Oh, yes. Strap in your seatbelt. Buckle up.
Mm-hmm.
We are off to the races on an exciting ride.
We sure are.
Yeah. My episode title for this episode is Intersections.
Ah, yes. There are many intersections in this episode.
Yeah, they were really fun to see how these plot lines interweave together. I found that really exciting. Okay, so we've given the spoiler alert, so we are going to dive in and share some of our thoughts about Supacell. We're excited to be reviewing the show. We were seeing some of the energy and excitement around the show and felt like we should hop on it and see what's up. There's been some great reviews of it, so we wanted to check it out for ourselves. So, Sarah, in this opening first episode of the season, tell me some of your thoughts about Supacell and what's working for you, what's not working for you. What are your thoughts about this first opening episode?
Yeah, I think that this is a good foundation laying episode. This introduces us to this whole world and to many different characters. There's a lot of characters to keep track of in this. And I think it did that pretty effectively of seeing the distinct worlds that each of these people inhabit, their different professions, their different communities that they're a part of, and then at the tail end of the episode, really showing us their powers and the way that those are introduced, I think is quite fun. And then obviously leading up to this big cliffhanger that makes you just want to keep watching and watch the next episode. So I thought overall it was a good foundation laying episode. I also just love that this exists. Typically when I think of sci-fi, this genre, I tend to think of movies or shows that are centered on white people. And obviously that is not the extent of sci-fi, but I really love that this is centered on Black people and they are our heroes. They are our protagonists. And already in this first episode, we have some pretty scathing commentary on whiteness and white culture. And I think that that's really important. And I love that we get that right out of the gate. And so I'm really excited to see how this show is going to continue to weave some of these deeper themes into it. And sci-fi is just a great platform, a great vehicle to make some of these larger comments about our society and shed light on things. So I'm very excited to see where this goes and how that continues to build on the great foundation that this first episode laid.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I love that I wanted to start with expanding on something you mentioned around just the fact that this exists is awesome. You know, we often talk about Netflix and the role it's playing in changing the landscape of film and TV entertainment. And it's really amazing to see the ability to fund something like this and then get it showcased and available and distributed to the public. So just love that there's opportunity for artists and creators with really interesting ideas to be able to get their ideas out there through a platform like Netflix. So it's just a really powerful, I think, testament to where we fund and choose to create our art. And Ratman, who's one of the directors of the show, just has so much that he wants to convey and express and communicate and shed light on. I think if we start with even just the title of the show, about titled Supacell, and it was one of the big themes that we saw kind of introduced. I think the show's probably going to flesh out a little bit more, but sickle cell disease and reframing what that illness has meant for the Black community and those that come from African descent, and how much that is prevalent in getting passed down from generation to generation, and reframing or creating a new dimension of that through showcasing these like special powers that some of our protagonists that we get to be introduced to in this first episode, using that insane new power that they have to progress forward or go after the things that they're looking for and wanting. I just think that there's something really powerful about the way that the show is advocating for this illness that is like pretty under the radar. Not a lot of people know, but I think I was reading that like only 1 in 5 people that they surveyed like knew that it existed and what it was and how it's affected people. So just the advocacy that this show in and of itself, even the title of it, is already bringing to this important part of these people groups, I think is really amazing and exciting to see. And then the other thought that I was having while watching this at the kind of a macro level is just like, is this our answer to the Marvel fatigue? The superhero fatigue that we've had over the past 15, 20, 25 years that have like dominated the movie industry. This feels like such an exciting way to showcase superheroes in other contexts, other countries, other people groups, other worlds. I think that's been really exciting to think about, and just like why superheroes are exciting, and the idea of having this unknown inner superpower and strength that is getting unlocked and discovered within you is like a really compelling concept in and of itself. Like ordinary people realizing that there's so much more that they have within them. It's just inspiring and exciting. And so I think that being framed in this context, with these types of characters, is really meaningful as well. So yeah, just like this one episode has really like gotten me thinking on so many different thought trains, and there's clearly such intention and purpose that these creators have in bringing these stories to life. And then at a storytelling perspective, there's a lot of like new and interesting characters that I think the show has already endeared us to so quickly in this first episode, that it's doing what the first episode of a season of TV needs to do, which is like get us invested in the characters, give us enough questions and curiosities to come back for episode 2 and want to know more.
Oh my gosh, yes, absolutely. I am so invested in these characters, and we're only 1 episode in, which is just wild to me. But I love what you said about Marvel, because I think that these are the type of superheroes that I want to follow.
Yeah.
I feel like with Marvel, and Marvel did a lot of good things. It's still doing good things, like not trying to like knock on them. But with a Marvel movie, you kind of know where you're going, and you know what these characters are like. And, there's a predictability there where I feel like these characters in Supacell, like they feel so real to me. I feel like I have people kind of like some of them in my own life, and they feel so grounded and so real. And I feel like sometimes in Marvel movies, I struggle to relate to them because they are just so superhero-y. Whereas it's fun to see these just normal Londoners getting these powers, and what are they going to do with it next. And we see their struggles, we see their relationships, we see what's going on in their lives, and it's all like really real life stuff, dissatisfaction at your job, or Andre is struggling to find a job, he's struggling to pay the bills. Sabrina has a cheating boyfriend. Like all of these things, they're so real that people are dealing with in their real lives. And then these people also have powers. Michael is a delivery driver. Like I just love how real they seem to me. And I think that that's one of the beautiful things about the superhero genre is that we can all be heroes in our own
Mm-hmm.
way, and we can all do things for the good of others. We can all help our communities in the ways that we are able. And I think that Supacell makes that so clear because none of them are what you might consider exceptional. They're just
Yeah.
regular, ordinary people, and they have power. So I'm very excited to see what happens because they're so grounded, because they're so ordinary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what's really great about the structure of this episode, too, is that we really get plenty of time to soak with them in feeling how difficult life is, how much of a ceiling they're hitting up against in their endeavors, and whether that's they're just down on their luck or like at a societal level, they are being oppressed by the system. You know, I think Andre's story is particularly powerful to me because he is so earnestly wanting to be able to provide for his family, to spend time with his son. And he's great at his job. He's a hard worker. He's willing to work overtime. But because of the systems of racism that are integrated into the policies within his company, he is robbed of that opportunity. And so like the moment when they discover their superpowers or that they have something, you know, within them that they don't even understand yet, honestly, they're just discovering it for the first time, it feels like hope. And I think every character goes through that, like they hit what feels like a low for them, and then the discovery of their powers happen, and it like almost lifts their chin up to be like, oh my gosh, there's I have hope. There's more that I have within me that I can go and do. And I felt this most, I think, in the scene where Rod realizes his superpowers when he ends up in Scotland and he's like really confused.
Mm-hmm.
But there's
Yeah.
like an earnestness in his facial expressions and him realizing, wait, like I have so much more to me, you know, and think that's when it was starting to click for me of why perhaps superheroes in general are really compelling and exciting for us, because we are ordinary people, but to discover that there's something more within us is so exciting and motivating. And then unlocking that potential and walking that out and nurturing that superpower within us is thrilling. But I think set in the context of these protagonists within this community, within the systems in place that are oppressing them, and then the realizations that they have, that there's more that they can bring to the table and change perhaps their circumstances, I think it feels extra meaningful and exciting in those moments where they discover their powers. I feel like we've seen in movies and shows perhaps um, superheroes discovering their powers and stuff, but I don't know. I think there's an extra layer to it with these five Black protagonists, and having really spent enough time in the first half of the episode experiencing real difficulty with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's those real world difficulties that then makes the discovery of those powers so extra special, because it's not just like, oh yeah, I'm having kind of a bad day. You know, like
Yeah.
it's really real stuff that they're facing. And
Mhm.
again, it's just so relatable. And so then that moment when it's like, oh, there's something else going on here. Okay, what is this? It's very, very exciting to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's often in those contexts where they feel hopeless and powerless that they discover it. And so then we get excited for them
Mhm.
too. We're like, yes, like there is a path forward. There is a way forward. Um, oh, that I think that's the fact that we get to wait so long to see them discover it. I think was also just like really smart screenwriting and pacing too. Like we're just gonna get to know these
Mhm.
people first before we get to know them as superheroes, and that connection is built with who they are as people. And like we mentioned, that pacing and then the satisfaction of seeing them all discover their powers in the last, like honestly the last third, even the last quarter of the episode. It's a perfect also cliffhanger for us as we get ushered into the next one. We're like, okay, let's see them now figure out how to walk this out and start to use them.
Yeah, and even the pacing of that ending too, because we see them when they're discovering their powers, and then because Michael's able to go into the future, we're able to see them kind of
Mm,
at the height or in full control of their powers, and how are they going to get from where we know them currently in the present time to where they
hmm.
are 3 months from now. I love that this show is so clear.
Oh, that's true.
This happens in 3 months. You have a ticking clock, and 3 months is such a brilliant amount of time too, because it's like far enough in the future that you're able to like, okay, we got a plan, we got some time to get some stuff together, but it's not so far in the future that you feel like, eh, that can wait for another day, like it's not some like
Mm.
ambiguous far off date. And
Hmm.
so I just love that choice of 3 months. The clock is ticking, the stakes are high. Okay, how are they all going to come together to accomplish whatever goal we're trying to accomplish in the
Hmm.
future? And I also love, like your name for this episode mentioned, all of these intersections. We see them crossing paths kind of with each other. They're frequenting the same establishments. Some of them have a conversation, some of them don't. And so I'm very curious to see how these pair ups happen, and how perhaps Michael will recruit everyone to this cause. Like, how is that going to go? Because they don't seem to know each other right now. So, how are these personalities going to collide with one another as they're seeking to accomplish some goal that we'll learn of at
Mm.
some point?
Yeah, no, that's a fabulous point. It's one of the things that I am keen on. I jotted down in my looking ahead section. It's basically like, how are they all going to meet each other? Like, and how are they all going to discover that they have these superpower abilities too? There's so many like uh dramatic tensions that are introduced and seeded for us. Like, one, how are they going to use their superpowers? Two, who are the hooded figures? Who's the foe? Really, we don't know who their primary um, antagonist enemy is yet. That is apparently in existence, that show up through the little, spinny, shiny wheel thing, circle thing. And then how will they meet each other? Because they clearly, like you mentioned in that future vision of 3 months from now, know each other and are working together as a team. So how does this team up happen? Those three big questions are, even one of them in and of itself is really exciting, but to have three of them, I think is really fueling that forward momentum to be like, and next episode, click.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this show is doing the like superhero-y things pretty well. Because like the exciting things about watching like a superhero movie, for example, is it's exciting to see the character get their powers and then learn how to use their powers. And then the other exciting way to go with a superhero movie is to see the team up.
Mm,
And we get both of those, presumably, in this show because they're
mm,
learning their powers and they have to team up to defeat the foe. So that's so smart to have two really exciting superhero structures all within
mm.
this show.
So
And
good.
so I'm excited to see how those things kind of combine with each other and how they build upon each other.
Yeah, that's so good. That's a fabulous point around those like two structural pieces, and then the show somehow being able to tackle both of those also in like five more episodes. We've only got five more episodes, so the efficiency of the storytelling is going to be really fascinating. I think the ability to quickly create very complex, three-dimensional characters with a lot of depth that we are also rooting for and are endearing to us so quickly was pretty impressive to me. We don't need a lot of exposition for these characters. I think for our introductions to a lot of them, we're kind of like thrown into a scene where there's clearly some like back history context that we don't really know, but we kind of see who they are and how they operate in these important introductory scenes with them. So like the one that really stands out to me is with Andre. There's so much context and stakes and history clearly there, but we immediately know who he is, what kind of person he is, what kind of dad he's trying to be. and what he cares about within like a couple of minutes within that scene. And I think that efficiency of the character development is really, really fabulous in this show. They don't waste any time.
Yeah, yeah, this show really respects us as the viewers and understands how we'll pick up information. You know, we don't, like you said, we don't need exposition. We don't need to know their entire backstory, but we can just meet them in a moment and understand a lot about who they are, get their personalities, get enough of their backstory. We get the gist of what's going on. And that's all that we need to continue forward. And these characters are three-dimensional, they're interesting, they're all very distinct from one another. They have different
Mm-hmm.
goals, different priorities, different struggles, and I love all of that. And I think that that's going to create some really interesting dynamics between this group because they are all so different. And so I can already see, based on their
Mm,
personalities, the little that I know of them, how there's going to be some real tension created, and certain people wanting to maybe lead the group when maybe they shouldn't be leading the group, and different things like
mhm.
that. So I'm excited to see those tension points, because they're all rooted in personality. And I think, to what you were saying before, this show understands that it's these people who are important. We'll get to see them using their powers and figuring all of that out, and that'll be fun and that'll be exciting, and we love that stuff. But you have to start with who they are as people, and that's the most important thing. And that's what we get in this episode.
Yeah, no, that's so good. That's so good. And I think what's also interesting that I wonder if we'll get to see more of, I'm sure we will, but it'll be fun to like think about it a little bit more, is the way that each character's superpowers are tailored to them specifically. So the one that I was thinking about a lot is with Sabrina. She has like superhuman strength, and just like her being one of the female protagonists of the show, her primary like conflict or like a struggle that she's experiencing is being basically betrayed and oppressed by this man that she was in love with. You know, like there's something about her having superhuman strength and her being a woman that I think is just like really like intentionally paired to her specifically as a character. And we see that she yields so much in creating a lot of, you know, like giving a lot of grace and making a lot of compromises to maintain that relationship. But that superhuman strength, physical strength that she now has, I think is just like really interesting to think a little bit more about. And then similarly for a lot of the other characters, what does that superpower say about, you know, maybe those innate character desires or needs that they have that they get to showcase the potential of through their superpowers, is just like interesting to think about a little bit more. It's not a fully formed thought, but I'm intrigued to like mull on that a little bit more as we get to learn more about them and see how they use their superpowers.
No, that's so good. That's something that else that I was wondering as well, and I don't think that I have enough information yet
Mm-hmm.
to like pair all those things together. But that's definitely something that I was thinking about
Mm,
while watching. And I think, especially as we see them using their powers a little bit more, and their powers become a little bit maybe more defined, because like
yeah.
hers especially, I'm I'm like, what is your power? Is it telekinesis? Is that what that is? And like moving objects with your mind or something? Like, what
Mm,
is that? Um, so I'm very curious, especially about her power, because that seems the most maybe ambiguous to me. But I think it's also interesting what you were saying about her strength, because we've also seen that, um, in that moment when she's working as a nurse, she's at the computer, and these boys
yeah.
really come and are asking her and just being jerks, inappropriate, so gross, and she handles that with such grace and dignity and strength, and she's so reserved even though she's clearly perturbed. So she has that really strong like inner strength, and is like fortified internally, and is not, doesn't seem to be like easily bothered. And so then when she's betrayed by her partner like that, it makes sense why she has this really, really strong reaction, this heightened emotional moment, and then she discovers her powers. So her in particular, I'm very excited to see more of, because I think her power is going to end up being super cool. I want to get into the next episode so that we know exactly what it is and kind of the rules and the mechanics around it.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. And see her like really come into her own. I think that vision into the 3 months into the future of seeing just this difference in how she just held herself, and that confidence that she had in that vision was like really exciting to see, because I think in this episode we see her sister like have that flair and that confidence and that, like, you know what, like go over there and, show up and demand your dignity or whatnot for your own self. And she's a little bit more like a little bit more reserved, a little bit more timid, a little bit more afraid, and maybe just also doesn't want to face the hard truths of what she might be suspecting is happening. So they're great foils to each other, but we see her sister be that more confident, dominant personality type. And so to see her perhaps like quiet confidence really shine through in that future 3 month vision, I think was just, I don't know, it warmed my little heart so much. And I'm excited to see that transformation for this character. Maybe perhaps her being one of the female protagonists, I particularly felt more connected to her as well, just getting to see her journey.
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah. I am already so invested in her.
Yeah.
Like, yes, you go, girl. You use those superpowers.
Yeah. Okay. Other big things that we wanted to mention. Oh my gosh, we should probably talk about the framing of how this episode even opens. Wow. We
Yeah.
are thrown right into the mix, and this show starts off with such a clear stance in the ground of what it's here to say, what it's here to do, what it's here to communicate. Tell me your thoughts about that opening and kind of the ways that we cut back to the prison setting and everything that's sinister and going on there. I think at least 2 more times within this episode. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. This show is so smart because it comes right out the gate and lets you know this is what this show is about. And I think that's so smart, especially being a Netflix show. I don't know if this was always intended to
That's
be a
true.
Netflix show or what, but I love that choice, because if in these first minute or two, I don't know how long that opening scene lasts, if in this first scene you are not on board, click out. This is not for you, leave. Like,
Yeah.
I think that that's so smart, because I started it and I was like, oh, I am not ready for this, and I had to like pause and like ready myself for this type of show, and like, okay, this is what we're doing. This is going to hit with some really, really hard truths, and you need to be ready to receive those things. You're going to have fun with a sci-fi show, but you also have to be ready for truth. And I loved that set the scene so that I knew what I was coming into. I was mentally prepared, and I was like, okay, let's go. I'm ready. Hit me with your best shot. And it's obviously so well done, well written, well executed. And I think another thing that really stood out to me in this episode that relates to this first scene is just the use of color. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, especially in that opening scene, especially when these guys are dragging this woman's body through the hallway and is leaving this like bright red,
Yeah.
just streak of blood, it's horrific to watch. It's truly awful. And visually, it's also so interesting to see. And this use of color and the blood contrasted with the really, really white
Yeah.
walls, the white floor, they're all in black and gray. And then you see in the cells, everybody is in these like really bright yellow jumpsuits, and they
Mm-hmm.
have bright green plants, or they have, screens with bright colors on it. Like, there's so much brightness happening in this really, really evil environment. And I find that very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love what you mentioned about the way that that opening is shot. And I didn't realize this before watching the episode, but I read later on after I finished watching that the director, creator, Ratman, he cites Scorsese as a source of information. Scorsese is my dude. One of his favorite films being Goodfellas. And now it makes a lot of sense. You know what I mean? You see that same like willingness to kind of gut punch you and create this visceral experience to get your attention and to make a claim. Like we're bold. We're bold visually. We're going to be bold in our ideas, and we're going to be bold in the things the concepts and topics that we're going to cover. Buckle your seatbelts. You're in for an exciting ride, but there are going to be these important truths that we're going to hit you in the face with, and we're unafraid. There's a fearlessness of this opening that I think is really exciting and really sets the tone. And it's fascinating because we then cut to all of these protagonists and they are in the city, and it feels like things are normal, like we're doing normal life things. But that framing of the opening almost creates this sense of like things are not as peaceful and wonderful and ordinary as they seem. There's this kind of like sinister underlying landscape that I think we are primed with as we see these characters interact with other characters on the show, and their bosses that are white, and this lady that they meet that's white. That's just like you can feel the fog of that sinisterness that is so apparent and so visceral in that opening, but it's still there. It just may not be in your face in the same way, but it's still there. And I think that quick cut and connection point that we are now juxtaposed with in our brains is really significant. So that opening, I think, is an important part of framing this episode. And I can see the influences and the inspiration that he's drawn from a filmmaker like Scorsese that also is unafraid to like hit you right in the gut and say, hey, pay attention. We're going to do some things.
Yeah, that's exactly what this show does. And I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, yes. Because it's this really smart way to capture attention, especially on something like Netflix. You're like, oh, let me just throw this thing on. A lot of it is great content for you to half watch while you're also scrolling on social media or whatever, or folding laundry or cooking dinner or whatever. A lot of Netflix content you don't have to actively pay attention to, but this show is like, nope, sit down, put your phone down, pay attention. We got some things to say. And
Yeah.
It's going to look really cool while we're doing it. And these are characters that you want to root for. So let's engage. And an opening like that, like you have to stop and pay attention. It's so effective.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought you brought up a really great point too, that I don't know if this was designed to with the knowledge that it would be on Netflix, but especially there's the plethora of content that is available on Netflix to really grab your attention and get you to stay and engage. Extra important when you've got like literally limitless possibilities of things to watch. This show's making a claim, and it's saying, if you're ready and you want to come on this journey with us, come along, let's go. So, and we are here. We are like, yes, us. Yes. Our hands are raised. We're like, please, we want to come. We want to come.
Yeah, we're ready. We're ready for more.
We are indeed. Okay, any other thoughts, things we wanted to mention before we give out some TBNS awards, which we'll explain in a hot sec?
Just semi-related, I was really focused on color when I was watching this, and I'm not certain, but it almost seems like each character has their own color scheme, and I'm very curious how that might evolve or how that might unfold. Like Michael is dark blue, like his uniform is dark blue. He bought the dark blue car. Dion was wearing dark blue and they got engaged. Like dark blue is kind of his color. And then Taser is red. That's like the gang color. But then there's also this like aquamarine blue is often in the frame too, especially in that like party scene. It's all like red and kind of this like aqua color. His friends either primarily wear red or aqua. Like it's a very interesting mix of colors. And then Sabrina's sister seems to have like a certain color palette too. I'm not sure what Sabrina's is though, because we've only seen her in like her nurse uniform or black. So I don't know if
Mm.
she might be like more monochromatic. So I'm just curious if there's something there with color or if it just happened to like be that way in this episode. But color seems to be very intentional in this first episode, which I just love. So I'm curious to see if that pattern continues to hold or if these colors mean something. I'm just curious because I'm
Mm.
starting to pick up on a little pattern. Rod typically wears kind of like a tealy color or greens. So I'm
Mm.
curious. I'm just watching out for it.
Yeah. I like it. Yeah, we will continue watching and seeing how that pattern continues to hold up and evolve, and you'll just have more data points as we watch the next episodes. So that'll be fun to see how
Mm-hmm.
your theory evolves and change, and then also to see how that matches or is paired with the energy and kind of the aura that these people bring to the team too. I think will be fascinating to think about as well. All
Mm-hmm.
right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm especially when color is chosen so intentionally,
Mm-hmm.
I'm always curious, like, okay, what does this mean? What does this say? How does this reflect on the character, the themes, or whatever? So I'm just interested. My eyes are looking for these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We shall see. All right. Well, let's give out some TV and Us awards. So maybe we can explain TV and Us awards for a hot sec. So it's a little tradition we like to do here on the pod. With each show that we watch, we pick three primary categories that we give out some awards to, because who doesn't like to give out some awards? And it's also fascinating to see what our choices are and how we interpret each of these categories episode by episode. So it's always a fun time. We have three awards categories to give out for Supacell. The first award is the SVP, aka the Super Valuable Player. And so this is given to a character that we believe is a super valuable character or player in the episode, and we can interpret that however we would like for why we would give out this award to one character over some of the others. The second category is achievement in intensity, and this is primarily a moment that is intense in some way. Again, all open to interpretation on what we think or how we want to interpret what intense might mean for a given episode or a moment. And then the third category is the Spitting Fire Award, because we've got some great characters that love to deliver some zingers of lines of dialogue. So this is given to a line of dialogue that is written that is just, it's chef's kiss when it comes to some fire getting thrown out there into a conversation. So, all right, Sarah, shall we give out the first award for the SVP of this episode? Who is your choice?
Yeah, my choice for SVP is Shar for taking that creep's food.
I have the same one for the same reason. That is
Yeah.
wild because it is some random detail that somehow we both got fixated and very excited by. I wrote down here, Shar taking the bag of takeout to her own car and not giving it to Kevin's girl.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I loved that scene. It's so good.
Okay.
The way that they're like sitting there and they're like, "Oh, he's maybe not home. Like maybe we should leave." And then the delivery driver drives up and then she is like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I'll take it in." The delivery driver is like, "Yeah, dude, whatever. I don't care." And then the confrontation happens and Char is like, "Nope, this is mine. I took it. It's mine." And I respect that. He did not deserve that food. No,
Nope.
he's being terrible. So she confiscated it, and I hope that she enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, she's just waiting in the car, maybe watching some YouTube, watching a show on her phone, scrolling, having a grand old time, going to
Mm-hmm.
town on that
Yeah.
food that is for her sister's unfaithful boyfriend. Great. Good moment. That's so crazy that we both picked that. That's wild.
Amazing.
Okay, the second category is achievement and intensity. What is your choice for this episode?
I mean, the most intense moment for me was that opening. Like,
Ah, yeah.
holy cow. It was so intense.
Yeah.
Just gut punched you, and then we were
In the
going. So
boots. Yeah.
I want to give this award to the opening of this episode.
That's a very good choice. That's a very good choice. Yeah. Some of those images and shots are, um, yeah, seared into our brains at this point. I'm giving this award to the moment where Taser stabs Michael and then he dies. It was like
Mhm.
30 minutes into the episode, and I'm like, I love this character, Michael, so much. And is he what? I think the shock value of that and the willingness for the show to go there. And then obviously it ushers in this whole thing around introducing Michael's superpower, which is great. But just, yeah, shocking moment. Did not expect. I think it's a well shot, very tense scene when he's just trying to make a delivery. And we get to see that run in.
Mhm. Oh yeah, no, that's a great point. That's like one of those hold your breath moments.
Yeah.
It's so tense.
Yeah.
Yeah, great choice.
So good. Okay, the next category is the Spitting Fire Award. Who is getting this award this week for what line?
I want to give this to Dion when her and Michael are watching the reality dating show, and she says they need to stop putting Black women on these shows.
Mm-hmm.
It's like,
Yep.
yeah, you're not
Or
wrong.
get guys that find Black women beautiful and
Hello.
attractive and incredible. Yeah, come on. It's so good because
Hmm.
also the prevalence of reality dating shows right now is just, it's so prominent. So like everyone will really understand that reference so clearly and the dynamics there,
Hmm.
the lack of representation, all of that. I am going to give this award to Shar. So this is when Shar and Sabrina are in her bedroom and they're debating on whether or not they should show up to Kevin's house. And Sabrina goes, "But I'm not that girl." And Char's like, "What? I am." Yes, girl. Show up to his house. So great.
Oh, it's so good. Yes.
Shar is one of my
You
favorite
go,
characters.
Shar.
Yeah, she's great.
She's fantastic.
So good. Okay, looking ahead, what are you excited to see as we head into episode 2 out of the 6 episode series?
Yeah, I feel like we already touched on quite a bit of it. I'm especially curious about Sabrina and her superpower. I'm
Mm.
excited to see all of them learning their superpowers and figuring out how to use them. And then I'm interested about this team up and in what order is he gonna I'm presuming Michael is going to be the one to recruit everybody, but like in what order will he go to get everybody on the team? What is that pitch going to look like? Who is the foe that they're going after? Like, I just have a lot of questions kind of about where is the show going, and I love that this one episode has created so many questions for me that makes me want to keep watching. So I'm excited to learn all of these things eventually. It might not happen in the next episode, but I have enough to be excited to continue the journey.
Yes, so many questions. You listed a lot of the ones that I have as well. I'm particularly keen to see how will they all meet, particularly because we get to see them have these small intersecting points in this episode. And so I think the show's hopefully, and I think, going to do something interesting around how they actually begin to discover each other. I think other, superhero movies, they just like all get called in by like some central force that's the governing body of all the superheroes, and then that's how they get teamed up together. And so there's evidence from the show so far that there might be some interesting way that they meet that really pushes the plot forward too and helps us learn about who they are, how willing they are, and who shares first about their superpowers. I think will be also interesting to see. I'm intrigued by the structure of the show because the episodes are named after each of the 5 protagonists, and then the final episode, episode 6, is called Supacell. So I don't know if there's going to be like a little bit more of a focus on each of the 5 protagonists as they go on through each of the episodes. So, I mean, it seems to track so far. Like Michael is one of the primary focus areas of the show, and we kind of end with a big moment with him. So it'll be fascinating to see the structure of the show and how they focus on each character with their dedicated episode. I would love to learn more about this prison. What is happening there? There seems to be this like
Yeah.
short white man sipping from a mug very sinisterly at the beginning. So I'm sure there's something there that we'll learn as well. And then I would love to see more of Taser's superpowers. I feel like we got to see a little bit more of the other 4 protagonists in their superpowers, really using them. And I feel we got to see a little bit less for Taser. So I'm intrigued to see more from him. So those are my couple of things. Lots of things.
Yeah, no, that's a great list. And I'm just going to say ×2 to all of that.
Perfect. All right. And we shall hit next episode real fast to see what episode 2 will hold for us. But in the meantime, this was our review and discussion of episode 1 of Supacell. You can find it available to stream on Netflix. Thank you for listening to today's episode of TV and Us. Our name sums it up. We're big fans of TV and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories. So everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today as we began our journey through Supacell. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review, letting us know your thoughts about episode 1 of this show. You can connect with us on Instagram, Threads, and TikTok at tvnspod, or email us at tvnspod@gmail.com. We will be back in a couple of days to discuss episode 2. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk again very soon.